My name is Laura Dant and I'm the PCA Region Focus Coordinator. Welcome to the third quarter HPDE webinar presented by Mia Walsh, PCA National DE Chair, Connor Henderson, Club Racing Business Manager, and Ellen Beck, National HPDE Instructor Trainer.
Laura, thank you so much. And Laura, I know this is out of your realm of Region Focus Coordinator, so thank you for taking your time out this evening. I'd like to say that Ellen Beck will be monitoring our chat this evening, so if you have questions along the way, look under the control panel and you'll see the chat feature there. And without further ado, let's get started. Okay, thank you to our program sponsor, Pirelli. Pirelli provides sponsorship HPDE program, which allows us to provide our national instructor training, as well as a lot of different benefits that you have being a PCA HPDE region. And so I wanted to thank Pirelli for their continued support, and they have upped again to sponsor our program in 2025. So thank you, Pirelli. Grazie, Pirelli. The agenda is pretty simple. You know, we're all here for the minimum standard updates, and I know that's why most of you are here this evening. I wanted to welcome any new region leadership that might have come in since we were last together in June. Thank you for taking time out of your personal lives this evening to spend an hour with the HPDE team for PCA. I wanted to make any of the zone or region level management, the zone reps or the presidents. I am available to participate in any of your zone meetings, so keep that in mind and shoot me an email. My email address is there, hpdechair@pca.org. I'm going to be having a little chat with Connor Henderson, who is the PCA Club Race Manager, talking a little bit about continuing professional education, which has been a hot topic that's been very popular with our instructor corps and our DE leadership. And then we're going to get into the meat of the PCA national minimum standards and get to questions and comments. Sorry, dog jumping up on me as we go through the slides today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Connor Henderson, who is the Club Racing Business Manager. And Connor, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I need to work on my Italian. I think that would really impress Pirelli when I go meet with those guys. But my name's Connor Henderson. Been participating in PCA HPDEs for a long time. Got my instructor rating I think back in 2020, and I think Mia might as well know just about any track day I could sign up for. I'd like to go to. Before I start, I want to thank each and every one of you listening for all of the time and hours you guys dedicate to this, especially motorsports being close to my heart. It means a lot seeing just this incredible number of people who dedicate their time to this. On that note, just talking about what club racing is, a few things have come up in the past regarding this kind of missed connection between club racing and HPDE. I think it's a little bit different being, National has this giant club racing program where, each of the DE, I like to call them like factions, right? So we have all of our different groups all over the country that are, kind of in their own bubble. One thing I'm moving towards is a little bit of like a unification there, or just a kind of a single chain of communication. On that note, we do get a little bit of kickback from people that I've met regarding, not wanting to lose HPDE members to the club racing program. Wanted to kind of hit that nail on the head right now and say that's really not a realistic fear from what we've found. We've found, I can't think of a club racer who doesn't participate in DEs. And we kind of want to show that support for that program and, emphasize that we're not taking members away from that and so on and so forth. And Mia, if you want to speak on the example you guys have with the Potomac region, I think you do an excellent job. Yeah.
Right. And the Potomac region, we have 12 or 13 DEs a year. And as I was thinking about my discussion with Connor, I was looking at our 2 DE chairs, both of them club race, our 4 chief instructors, all 4 of them club race, and a myriad of other levels of drivers who participate in both club racing and DE. So, I do agree with Connor. We're not losing people to club racing. It's not a one or the other thing. You can do both, and it's a very symbiotic relationship. And we're going to talk a smidgen about that, about how those two pairs mix together well. So, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so one thing we are pushing out to all of the regions, and if you haven't heard already, you'll probably see shortly, regions who don't run even an advanced or a solo DE with their club races. We've all kind of decided that's a really good idea. If not for, helping the region kind of offset the cost of club racing, we're able to bring in a new batch of drivers to see what club racing is. And it's funny, I'd always heard the story, or someone come up to me at a car show or a PCA event, and they say, wait, you can race cars with PCA. And I was like, yeah, you can, come check us out, things like that. But anyways, yeah, so that'll be coming over in the near future. And along that note, a lot of club racers are very passionate about getting on the track early. I think Sebring, I want to say it starts as early as like Wednesday or Thursday. We say test and tune, but I'm not entirely sure what that wording is supposed to be. Mia, maybe you can comment on that. No, next slide. Yeah, okay, I see that.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yes, so perfect. So David Hodges, as well as a handful of the PCA, Club Racing national staff, have really gotten together and decided to create a club racing kind of like a how-to sheet and then a presentation that you're able to present. We've kind of rolled this out to a few of the club races that have had DEs, and it's simple as just rounding up some of your advanced level drivers or not advanced. And we've done everything from hey, we've done a slideshow, or we just bring a club racer in to say, hey, this is why I do this. This is why I think it's awesome. And if you're interested, let's talk about it. And I've had some great conversations. A buddy of mine actually went out and bought a club race car after that, which was great. And yeah, you guys can expect that rolling out. A note that I did forget to mention, Mia, is we are working on a club racing school program. So the regions will be, so I don't want to give away too much information before it's all set in stone, but it's going to be maybe a kind of a conglomerate of different groups, and we're going to roll that out. Not sure entirely when. We're going to run that by the EC and kind of present them a nice package, basically. But
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
Outside of that,
and well needed. Yeah,
I agree. So outside of that, really all that I have. My contact info is at the top. Feel free to email me whenever. I'm usually on mobile, always accessible. And then we can set up, calls or chats, and anything you guys want to know, happy to chat about it.
All right, Connor, thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to hang on for the rest of the 51 minutes, or you can head to whatever you're doing this evening. So one of the things that we talked about that Connor mentioned was the PCA National Test and Tune minimum standards. And this has gone through various iterations over the last couple of years, especially. The test and tune, there's a 2024 PCA test and tune minimum standards. And this is basically saying that if you're having a club race 1 or 2 days before the club race, you can have a test and tune. I'm only telling you this because they have to be run under club racing rules. Several years ago, there were some iterations of this where a test and tune could be run within a DE, but this is fully within club racing rules. So if you are a region leader, not necessarily an HPDE leader, and you don't have the 2024 PCA National Test and Tune minimum standards, I can shoot them to you. I'm sure Connor can as well. So I wanted to just also say that about a month ago, I think, Connor did a webinar on bridging what a driver needs to know to bridge from DE to PCA club racing. And that was hosted by Dion Von Mulkey of Blaze, as well as Jason Nickick, who is a PCA member. And sorry, Jason, if I mispronounced your name. But I will have that up on PCA HPDE YouTube channel if you are interested in seeing that. And that'll be up in the next day or two. Laura, I have a little poll, and this is really for Connor, if he's interested to know of how many regions who are on the call tonight hold an annual or more than one club race, because I know a lot of regions hold more than one club race a year.
Yep, we've launched the poll and we've got some responses coming in now. We've got we're at about a 40-60 split between 40% being yes, 60% being no.
Okay, so we got all my HPDE folks on the line, so thank you very much. A little shout out to my region. We had our annual club race this past weekend, Potomac, and it was live streamed. There were cameras in, I think, 4 or 5 different corners with 2 people who were doing the narration of the event with all the drivers, and it was so exciting. It was really great. It's posted on the PCA Potomac YouTube channel. So if you are a region that's holding a club race and you think that you might want to learn more about how they did it, I'm sure I can put you in touch with the right people, but it was very exciting. Okay, on to continuing professional education. Our driving season in most of the country is slowing down. I know you all in Arizona and Texas have all year round. Yours is just getting started up now that the summer's gone, but this gives us, the rest of us cold weather folks, an opportunity to work on our continuing professional education program. So the chat is being recorded. I'd love to have any of you, all of you, just type in that chat any topics that you'd love to be have us hold a webinar on. We would love to get your feedback on some things that you might want to learn more about, whether it's within the PCA organization or outside. You can see several of the topics that we've had: teaching vision on the track, coaching advanced drivers, developing the subconscious brain, using data with your HPDE drivers. So we've come up with about another 7 or 8 topics, but we'd love to hear from you. We don't need to talk about them now, Ellen, but they will be recorded in our chat, and I thank you for your feedback on that.
And also, one question that might fit with the club race discussion is a club race run group allowed at DE?
If a club race run group is in a DE, it needs to follow DE minimum standards. So you can have a group of club racers. I know Metro New York does it, the Metro New York region, but they have to follow the passing standards for the DE program. Okay, here we are at our meet for the minimum standards. I'm going to review how the process has gone and what's going to happen from here. So the process actually started in March of 2024 when my National DE Committee joined me in Tampa for our DE National Committee meeting in person. And we really went through with a tooth and comb the minimum standards, looking at things that we implemented the year before, things that have maybe outlasted itself. And we went internally with hours and hours and hours and probably half a day or more of discussion. We wrote some proposed language changes. We had already reached out to you all for some input from regions. We talked to the EC, the legal and the president, about some of the things that we wanted to put out there. They did not approve or disapprove, but they allowed those things to go in. Nothing just too wacky that they didn't allow in. And then we sent those to you all on August 25th this past year, which was a redlined version. We brought them back to you for final input, and I submitted the Google form. I got about a dozen responses on the Google form, which was fantastic. The deadline was last week because we had a national DE committee meeting again to talk about what people sent to us. So you had about 3 weeks, if not a little bit more, to get some of those questions back into us. After today's meeting, we'll take, if there's any additional comments, we really had wanted them before this meeting tonight. I might get some questions that are in the chat that I'm not going to be able to answer on the spot. So that's why we were requesting them in advance, but do the best we can. Then we're going to submit our final recommendation to the EC. And they have the final vote. So anything that we're talking about tonight, they might not even approve it. So it may not be a discussion on the table, but we're going to go with the thought process that most of it will be approved. I don't know if it will or won't, but that's the way that we go from there. So we talked a lot about the details of what we were adding at the last June webinar. And again, those are always posted within a day or two of the event. So we did talk about windows and passing protocols and hand signals. And we did talk about the track experience and how we can continue to develop that in order to get new members onto the driving scene. We talked about hybrids and electrics. We talked about GoPros and the different recording devices that are out there. And then we took as well questions live that night and questions in advance from that meeting and addressed them as well. So there was a lot of information in that webinar. If you have an hour to go back to go look at it to help clarify things, that's great. We then got, as I said, got all of this feedback from you, and we have adjusted some of the concepts and wording from your feedback that you provided. So I just really, really wanted to thank you a lot for taking the time to read through the different things that we were proposing, and it wasn't an easy task, honestly. So we did really value the input that you gave us and spent a lot of time last week going over things that we really needed to wordsmith better. So again, thank you very much. And a big giant thank you to my DE committee. They have been fantastic during this whole process and throughout the year. As I said, we got stuff on the Google Forms was wonderful. I did get emails and phone calls. It doesn't really matter which way that we get the information as long as it's documented. So one thing that was somewhat recurring was, that's awful. We don't want to do that. Well, if it's something that if you want to be more strict than what we're proposing, and many of your regions will want to be more strict than what we're proposing, we didn't change anything to make things more strict. We did make some things more lenient. And so you don't need to change to 120-day tech inspections if that gets approved. You can stay with 30. You don't have to run in with turn signals. You can stick with the way that it's done. Any region can decide that they want standards that are more strict than what we are proposing or what gets approved in the minimum standards. So please know that these are not pushed down to you if it's something that you want to keep your processes that you have in place and they are more strict than what the proposal or what the accepted minimum standards will be, then please go right ahead and do that. We had a region that has 10 events a year and 120 days in between inspections is way too long, then don't do it. Stick with your 30. We made, as I said, a really concerted effort to not make the minimum standards more stringent. And, we're doing that for a number of reasons. Safety is a number one priority by and far. We didn't make anything unsafe. We would never, ever do that. But there is competition out there, or other organizations, we don't really consider them our competition, but that have less strict standards for tech inspections and things like that. So we do want to be a go-to organization for HPDE and make it a little easier for the regions and for the drivers specifically. Again, your region does not need to adopt those. All right, I'm going to start with two things that came in from the regions. Again, thank you all for taking the time to share your thoughts with me. The first two aren't necessarily minimum standard-ish related, kind of, sort of. Terry from the Milwaukee region said that they came into a little bit of confusion because one of the tracks where they were driving their HPD program was using the speed waiver. PCA, thanks to Ken Laborde, adopted speed waiver electronically during COVID, and that kept us from having to do a lot of more face-to-face things, and was trying to help us be able to continue our programs during COVID without as much facial face-to-face interaction. But it's really taken off, and Hagerty bought speed waiver, and MSR is owned by Hagerty. Motorsport Reg is owned by Hagerty. Speed waiver is also available in the club registration platform. So a lot of motorsport community organizations are using it, not just driving ones. So they came into a confusion scenario where the people at the front had their speed waiver from the event and showed that when they were coming into their paddock. And, at a first glance, if you're not looking really closely, they might not have noticed that it wasn't for their PCA event. It was the track event. So he wanted us to share that information, just to be noting that there are some tracks out there that are using the speed waiver, and that your people need to be diligent about ensuring that speed waiver is for your event. And I really tried to find a pretty picture of myself with my speed waiver, but as you all know, we just take it whenever we get that text. So this clearly says that it's a Potomac's event that's coming up at the end of the month. So they just, let your people know that they need to be a little bit more looking at those minuscule details when they're checking the speed waiver. The next question was not, again, specifically minimum standards, but it was very much worth a discussion within my DE committee. And it said in the region handbook for the National Instructor Training, it says that an instructor candidate must have at least 10 days in an advanced run group. And this was Mike from Peach State, I believe. Okay, I have screen overlapping. So that was Mike Wilson from Peach State. He suggests that at least 6 of those days should be with the PCA organization. And it was a delightful conversation about why that's a really great idea. So thank you, Mike. And the reason would be that the people would have a philosophy, understanding of what the HPDE program within PCA would be. They would be familiar with the PCA policies. They would be part of the camaraderie in the PCA paddock, that we're training people to be PCA instructors instead of providing free training. Most of the time it's free to other people that might not continue to drive within the PCA organization. We had discussed in the June 2024 webinar about the ways you can properly vet a candidate to be part of your National Instructor Training Program. We talked about how if you're holding a National Instructor Training Program, if you have a candidate that is looking to join you from out of region, how it's imperative that you talk to the region chief instructor from where that person is coming to ensure that they are a viable candidate. And is such a hot topic that we've decided to talk about properly vetting candidates and talking about the National Instructor Training School process, and in a November webinar. So look for that information coming. I'm passionate about it. My committee has done an amazing job at rewriting the curriculum over the last couple of years. We continue to improve it. We've become experts I've always been an expert in front of the classroom. I'm a teacher, but everybody, we're doing such a great job out there. I'm giving ourselves all a pat on the back. but that'll be coming in November. So next on the list is what were some of the other things that we got from the regions? Again, phone calls, emails, the different people reaching out to people on my committee, the Google Forms. There was a lot of clarification of language that could have been worded better. So certainly appreciate all of that feedback from you all. People's black flag stations might not be, where we said it was going to be. If they're on the tech form, what if the fluid line is now, hidden within engine compartment, and if it's accessible, then that's something that they're going to have to inspect. So just different things as cars progress and the mechanics of the cars. One person or one region was like, well, you keep using safety inspector, but that's our tech inspector. So we made some of the verbiage of titles a little bit more open-ended. There were some redundancies in language and just some really not nitpicky, because that's exactly what I want, but really down to the details of things. So we have changed those. So then we got into things that were more specific. So we're going to talk about those now at 9:31, and I think I'm doing pretty well. We got a request that we should change the standard to a quick grid tech of brakes and tires each day in event, rather than the at-track inspection only happening once if you have a multiple day event. They were suggesting that we do that every day, just checking as well the brakes and tires every day. And we all fell back to, your region absolutely can do that. We weren't going to put it in the minimum standards. There are a lot of regions that have one-day events. My region does a tech inspection at the track every single day, even if it's a 3-day event. They are all lined up every morning, and those are the things that we do catch mostly, are the rotors and the brake pads, sometimes tire wear, that's another big one, and sometimes leaks and things. So my region does go above beyond what the minimum standards are, and I then would suggest that region who suggested that does that as well if they choose to do so, but we're not going to make that a minimum standard. Incident policy. Bruce, this was a good one and really held a great discussion within my committee. We even pulled out the region procedure manual, the RPM, as well as the policies and procedures manual, looking at what is written for an incident report policy. And I'm sure Dan Dazzo, who's the safety chair, who actually pulled out those documents, we did find some inconsistencies in the national documents as well. But Bruce's specific statement, and he was correct, that there was a contradictory in what the buff out was and what the incident report requirement was. It was a very vibrant discussion. We did enjoy talking about it. We get passionate about the things that we do for our volunteer work in the club. We did reword it to align with the incident report policy that was written. So that will be in the final thing that we submit to the EC. So Bruce from Alpine, thank you so much for that. And I did put this little design there because we're not supposed to show any pictures of incidents. Region authorized inspector. This was by Doc E in Tennessee. What, if any, requirements are there for the region to authorize someone to be this inspector? Nowhere is region authorized inspector defined. That is something, again, we let the regions decide who they feel is a competent and capable person, and you all need to define that in your region. You can set that standard to yourselves. There are regions that, this is a picture again from one of my regions, does about 2 weeks before every event, they are able to get a moving car insurance, because of a car, if it's a PCA sponsored event and a car is going up and down on a lift, there is a moving car insurance that's needed. It does not cost any money, but that would cover any person that perhaps would have gotten harmed in a scenario where the car is moving up and down. You all can decide to be different, whatever your reasonable thinking about safety, always thinking about safety first. Who is a capable and competent person to do those tech inspections for your region? I am going to pause, Ellen, because I think that I probably hit a couple hot spots.
Yes, I have a question from Scott Brown, and he writes, when it comes to tech inspections, both current and presumably the upcoming proposed changes, members have seen inconsistency across regions related to the minimum standards. What are the ramifications on insurance?
Inconsistencies, I'm not 100% sure what he would mean by that, but if a region is following the tech inspection, the insurance would be viable. I guess that they're saying that there are regions that are not. Love to know about that further, Scott. But he can reach me offline. That sounds like something that we might need to talk about. I'm not really.
From Chris Murphy, and his question is about belt expiration standards. Could there be an opportunity to change this? Most other organizations and clubs do not require belts to be within their expiration dates. There are notes that the belts need to be in good condition and inspected, but it is okay for them to be expired. Some people have stopped coming to our events because of this. Knowing that someone can show up in a 1970 911 with stock belts, and that would be fine, but a set of belts 1 year out of expiration are not able to be used, it's hard to make the argument to our participants. I know I would rather be held in place by a 6-point harness that is a few years past expiration versus a 54-year-old stock belt.
Well, Chris, I feel your pain there. We did go last year and try to have that addressed. And the fact is, and again, these are questions that I would have loved to have had in advance because I have all of my data from when we went to go through this last year. The Department of Safety, the motor safety, still says that those 30-year-old belts are okay to use. So we did request and put through that we changed that, and it did not get approved. So I appreciate that, and we also would like to see that changed at the DE committee level, but it was not approved.
I have two more questions related to passing. Is now a good time for that, or shall I wait?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so A. Muller asks, HPDE passing is 1 point by per car. Using turn signals usually is 3 flashes per touch. And essentially how would that work? When you flick on your blinker, it goes 3 times.
So the minimum stand, and that's, by the way, that's why a lot of regions don't like the using turn signals, because the way that it's written in our minimum standards and the way that it's supposed to be done in different organizations that do it is that you actually have to turn the turn signal off and then turn it back on for that next pass to happen. And trying to get a whole stack of cars, it's very hard to discern what is turned off and then turned back on again. So that is one of the reasons that many of the regions, I assume, are not going to move towards turn signals. But that is one of the biggest issues out there with turn signals. So I really don't have an answer other than you're supposed to turn them off and then turn them back on for the next car to get by.
Okay, I have one question about expanded passing. And this is Doug Bartlett, and he says, draft minimum standards disallow passengers in expanded passing run groups who are not instructors. Yet this prevents regions from taking advanced drivers on track in an expanded passing session prior to promoting them to such a run group. Can we loosen this restriction for the above purpose?
That's a really great question. Yeah, we've talked about that before, and I know that the way that some regions do address that is they have the person with the instructor go up one run group as a kind of a trial, and that the instructor in the right-hand seat, the driver, the not a student because he's probably already been soloed, has that right-hand seat person to kind of help them feel their way around. That's a great question. And so, that, as I said, that's one way, is that you have that driver move up and kind of have the person walking them around. Another thing that regions do, which I really like as well, is slow it down, 70%, and have a session with the whole, like, next level down, some practices going side by side as a instructional thing. It's not a regular driving session, and kind of have them do a little bit of training at a much slower pace, but kind of feeling their way around passing in zones where they would not have been able to pass in that lower run group, but that's done as a training, and the whole run group is involved in that. So anyway, that's a great question. I will talk to my committee about that and see if there's something that we can do. So I think that was Chris, so thank you. I like that.
Yeah, I have also seen both of those strategies work successfully.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
that completes the questions that I think
Okay, I'll keep going.
that I have. But if anyone out there, if I missed somebody, please ask your question again. Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, I do get the chat log, so it will identify your email address that you logged in to the event with, and I can also follow up with you after. It's going to be my bedtime by the time this is over. I'm on the East Coast, but follow up with you after tomorrow. Okay, Rocky Mountain region, you guys did such a great job. I'm a technology teacher, and they sent me back something that had comments in it embedded and redlined and multiple people commenting, and it was really easy to decipher what their intents were and where things could be adjusted or worded better. So they had a lot of suggestions on this 120-day tech form. So a lot of those are very amenable. We're very amenable to addressing. I think we had on this 120-day form, what are the dates of the track that you are at right now, as well as what track. So that was on the former form, which we don't need on this 120-day form because it's valid for whatever tracks you're going to within that 120 days. So just a little thank you to the Rocky Mountain region for their very thoughtful and technology savvy way of providing that information to me. Okay, this is another one, friends, that is a little bit of a spot that we battle every year. To be frank, none of us on the HPDE committee love for 4-point harness belts, but it was from regions wanting them to be allowed. And so I don't know what year they were finally put into there. We really don't love them, just putting that out there. Cliff from Palmetto and one other person emailed me either last night or this morning. I did not have a ton of time to address the question, but I wanted to bring it up here. So the 4 points belt is a specific Schroth belt that is available, and our minimum standards state that Schroth for this particular belt, another model of this particular belt, has a list on their website of all of the manufacturer and model cars that have been tested with this belt. And so our minimum standards say if your car is on that list, and they're not, not Porsche brand cars. So if you have people coming in different car models, it has to be on that list. And that's the only way that belt is allowed. They have one now that's for Porsche GT3, GT4, 918 cars, but it doesn't, Cliff was saying that it doesn't specify what model Porsche that you might expect to find them in. I did not have an opportunity to pull their list, but it's a 991 GT3, 981 GT4, 918. So we're going to just look at that a little bit more closely. This for the carbon seats, so it has to be specifically for that seat model. Again, we'll look at that a little bit more in detail, but I wanted to put it up there. We did address an issue where, and this was in section 10H for the Porsche GT seats. That was a blurb that we had added in 2023, and we wanted to be a little bit more specific in it. And we are writing to request allow that the harness systems be attached to the carbon stock seat mounts. Porsche from the factory on their internal side of the seat belts, they are attached to the mounting, the seat mounting. So our previous rendition said that it could not attach there on the one side, and that's on the interior side. The harness shoulder belts should be attached either to the harness bar or to a roll bar if you're putting in the harnesses for that. Tire age, we did get a request to put in our minimum standards how old the tire could be in order for it to drive. We didn't want to put that in there because the onus would be very difficult for the regions to be able to fully comply to. You all can have language in your own regions that state what your tire, the optimum age or acceptable age could be. We did discuss it with the safety chair, the national safety chair, and 6 to 10 years at the very end. I can't imagine driving on a 10-year-old tire on a track. All right, so that is at the higher level, everything that came through to me from questions from the regions. Again, thank you for doing that. I don't know, Ellen, if any more questions came through.
Yes, I do have one from Stanley Corbett, and
Hello, Stanley.
Is asking, are 120-day inspections good for multiple events? If so,
Yes.
How do you expect drivers to provide an original tech form at each event?
Yeah,
What is the process?
Yeah, the tech form is multiple sheets. One of them is one that they keep, and they have to be responsible for those 120 days. Just like the club racing log books, you got to hold on to your log book. So you could put it in one of those clear plastic things. You could have it
laminated.
You got to be responsible for it. The third page is something that you hand in at each event so that the region has that for their documentation with their signatures and that they've completed that other piece of the tech inspection. But that 120-day document, the individual driver needs to be responsible for and to bring it to each event. So they can shove it in their glove box or whatever they need to do. But if they don't have it, guess what? They are responsible for keeping it.
While we're on this topic, there was a question earlier, and I believe that you answered it in part, but I'm going to read it again. And it says, what problem is being addressed by changing the DE pre-tech to a 120-day validity versus prior pre-tech per event? 120 days is too long for brake pad and rotor inspections.
I don't disagree. The problem that it's solving is that there are regions that hold 2 events a year, and their members are saying that it's too ominous, it's too expensive, it's too much of a hardship for them to have, their whole car tech inspected before each event. There are BMW Club, Audi Club has 1 year tech inspections. Not again that I'm comparing myself to them or comparing ourselves to them, because we are very well known to be a very safe organization, and our insurance company realizes that as well by providing us the excellent rates that we have gotten for the last 20 years. So the problem that it's solving for some regions, and not for all regions, are regions that don't have a lot of events or have limited events or limited resources, are complaining that they're losing people because of the tech inspection requirement. Again, your region does not need to implement that, and I'm not going to speak for my region, but I can't imagine that my region will implement it either. I think that answered the question.
That was from Doug Bartlett, and I'm pretty sure he'll follow up if he has additional questions on that.
All right, we are 9:53 wrapping up, unless there's something else, but our next webinar, our end of the year celebration webinar, is on December 10th. That will wrap up the year and talk about our plans more concretely for 2025. I cannot express enough how I would love to have you reach out to me to schedule your national instructor training in advance, even if you can pinpoint a 2-week span so we can get our calendar populated. We have a handful of wonderful trainers out there, but it's really nice to know in advance where we're going to be and who's going to be doing it. So please keep me in mind when you're putting your calendars together. It could be just a pencil in, but I would really appreciate that in advance. As Connor said, we can't do this without you guys. So the fact that you're sitting with me at 10 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night if you're on the West Coast, thank you for giving your time to me. We love you. HPDE web store, I know I do it every one, but the PCA DE committee does get a little teeny weeny kickback from that helps us help you in your programs. But the other thing is, it's pretty cool to see everybody in their PCA DE or DE instructor gear. So don't forget that. We do have a PCA driver education leadership group on Facebook. I know not everybody's on Facebook. It is a place for you all to ask questions and get information from other leaders in the DE program. I do go through every single request and ensure that they are a valid either PCA national instructor or a leader in the region. Thank you to all of my national trainers who are just a phenomenal group of people. All my DE committee members that you see here, we're spread across, I would say we're spread across North America, but I don't have anybody from Canada. So I'm going to be your Canadian person. If you need anything, HPDE chair at pca.org. Thank you for your time tonight. And Laura, that's all I have.